You're now listening to the Something Good Podcast Network. Please press any key to continue.
A kiss, as defined by Dan Webster, is something pleasing, a caress, a gentle touch. But there's another kiss that isn't in Webster's.
Hey world, we're Kiss!
Some critics say they don't make music, they just make noise.
Yeah, Kiss sucks!
Kiss implies the extreme in the theatrics on stage, utilizing fire and smoke and bizarre costumes, and the ever-consistent, constant concealment of their true identities.
Speaking of which, Kiss is going to have its own comic book soon.
Take Kiss with you. It's fun. Show your friends and be the first. Now.
Oh my God, no time to turn!
And welcome to No Time to Turn, a Kiss Nerd podcast.
Nerds. That's us.
Joining me as always is Cap and Alex from the Something Good For You podcast.
Yo.
Heard over most of these same internets. If you take the time and trouble to find it, and it's well worth finding, you'll find something.
If we're still making new episodes,
good for you.
Something good for you.
We hadn't done them in a minute. We need to get back in the swing of that.
We haven't.
Well, then I guess it's not yet something good for you.
We've been focusing on the Kiss stuff right now.
That was a giant waste of breath.
Hey, we've got a big Christmas special that we were still promoting.
Yep.
That was like a year ago.
I know, right? God.
So we're tracking the history of Kiss album by album, year by year. We are not experts, blah blah blah. We don't promote other. We're not tied into anything Kiss officially. We're not part of any inside information. We're just a bunch of random nerds that like to talk about Kiss.
Big old fans.
And we've been tracking the history, like I said, album by album, year by year, and we're going to come across the curious anomaly that is known as Kiss Killers.
Yes.
In the year 1982, coming off the heels of the abysmal failure that was Music from the Elder.
And this is kind of one that's, I'd say not largely forgotten, but kind of slips through the cracks in history just because it's a compilation album that was only made to be sold in Europe.
It's
correct.
It was
Yes.
imported. Well, okay, with the failure of the Elder, Polygram, which is now, of course, Kiss's record company because it bought out Casablanca, which we've talked about in previous episodes. They're sitting, they're the bosses. And we've talked in the previous episode how Kiss seemed to have enjoyed kind of an unprecedented, well, I wouldn't say unprecedented, but a very unusual relationship with Casablanca in that they had the head of the record label, which was Neil Bogart, really allowing them carte blanche to kind of do what they wanted and how they wanted. I mean, occasionally he called in what he wanted, but by and large, they had a very healthy free reign to do what they wanted. Here, they no longer have that. The Polygram guys, the powers that be, the suit and tie guys in the green room and the brain trust have, counted the chips and did not come up with a healthy sum, and this Music from the Elder business has got to stop. So they demand a repackaging of older songs with 4 new songs, specifically hard rock songs, specifically commercial hard rock songs.
None of your concept album bullshit, guys.
Basically.
So now they have to meet the demands of these new bosses. And as we've stated at the end of the previous episode, Kiss no longer lead, they are led.
Mm-hmm.
And this will be their first collaboration with a producer named Michael Jackson, who I guess is rechristened Michael James Jackson to avoid
confusion.
Because, I mean...
Do you know the lore behind that? Supposedly, if we want to believe everything that's written, supposedly Gene Simmons is the one that named him Michael James Jackson.
Well, according to Gene, he'd tell you he discovered the Jackson 5 too, but still.
That's why I said if we want to believe what we read.
I mean, it seemed like they would have just left it Michael Jackson and been like...
just to get some eyebrows raised.
Yeah, they're probably... I'm sure they thought of that after the fact. They probably were sitting around going, shit. So this guy, Michael James Jackson, had mostly worked with MOR acts, middle of the road. It's a radio format. It's that kind of what the name implies, middle of the road, very
Boring.
inoffensive kind of acts. He produced Paul Williams, the diminutive singer from the early 70s that seemed to be on every late night talk show and variety show, and played. He was the lead in Phantom of the Paradise.
Okay.
And he was Little Linus Burdett in the Smokey and the Bandit movies. But he was also a hit songwriter, wrote a lot of the big middle of the road kind of classics of the time. He wrote just an old-fashioned love song. Michael James Jackson produced that, his version. He also produced Pablo Cruz, but he'd also produced the first Red Rider record, which was a Canadian kind of a hard rock band. They would have a hit a year later with the song Lunatic Fringe, which I think still gets, I got frozen into the FM classic rock radio playlists to this very day.
Yep.
He didn't produce that song. But that's about the closest to hard rock that he's ever gotten. And now he's being brought in
For Kiss.
from the information I've got, Howard Marks is responsible for this. He's the connection. And I think they shared an attorney and something to do with Diana Ross. I'm not exactly sure.
But it's just kind of like that's where the Diana Ross thing, it's interwoven somehow.
Some of this stuff gets fuzzy to me, and all I can see is that ostensibly he's brought in because he is a song-oriented producer, whatever that means. And I guess because the demand here is to make commercial
songs
music.
and things,
Stuff that'll get played on
I think
radio.
more importantly, this had to be a cost-cutting measure. Because apparently the band still didn't feel comfortable producing themselves, or maybe the record company wasn't going to allow it at this point.
I would think the latter.
So I'm sure it's probably all of the above.
Yeah.
And he gets vetted through a process where he meets individually with Paul, and then Gene, and then Bill Aucoin, which is interesting because Bill Aucoin, as we talked about in the previous episode, he's year to year here, and he's on very thin ice.
Yeah.
And I think it's Jackson who brings in Adam Mitchell into the songwriting process, who's going to contribute heavily to these songs and songs on the next album, which will be Creatures of the Night.
Yeah, and the only thing I can find on Adam Mitchell was that he had a hit with Olivia Newton-John, of all things.
Okay.
And here he is with Kiss.
Well, I mean, this is the way some of this is going to go. It's some curious stuff's going on here. Ace has not yet formally quit, but I think he's gearing up to be out of the picture.
Yeah.
When does his car wreck happen? Isn't it April of 81?
It does happen right around this time period, and the whole narrative that's at least written is that limos were sent to his place over and over and over, and he just never got into any of them, which is why he wasn't included in the recording process for these 4 new songs.
No, that wouldn't be right because they recorded these in Los Angeles. So I'm gonna say that's not a true fact.
But which car wreck is this? Weren't there like a few?
Well, I think the DeLorean wreck, the famous DeLorean wreck, was the spring of 81.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure. I don't know if y'all got that ability to pull that up, but at any rate, he's not going to participate in these sessions for these 4 new songs. Bob Kulick will play lead guitar.
Now, I wonder how he wound up getting wrapped back into it. Was it just because it was a familiar person they had worked with, or was he kind of in background talks even?
I think it was just, let's get somebody they know. It's quick. Let's
Get
go.
the job done.
We've got to have this out. We got to go. There's a demand here by our record company. They said jump. How high?
Yeah. Jump. What color?
Yeah.
Do we know why it was only released in Europe only?
I don't know. Ostensibly, it's because they already had double platinum and 2 live albums in America that were, but it doesn't make sense. It's like, well, then why even put 4 new songs on it if it's going to go out in foreign markets?
The only thing I could think of is because they had reached that recent success with like Dynasty and Unmasked.
Yeah, those did well in foreign markets, so that maybe that was the logic. I don't know.
No, because the U.S., like, actually, fun fact about this, the United States did not get an official version of this until 2014.
Yeah.
When they did the
Okay.
Casteria box set. Everything else had to be an import. There was no, like, official U.S. release of this
Right.
for a long time.
Well, they go into recording this, and Bob Kulick says the band weren't real clear with what they wanted. They seemed pretty fragmented and fractured here, and they didn't know what they wanted, but they knew what they didn't want.
Yeah.
Which was pretty much everything he was trying to do. And they were kind of giving him carte blanche. I mean, previously he was like, try to steer towards what you think Ace might play.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, Ace wasn't going to play All American Man, but whatever. Here he's just kind of told to,
play.
Do your thing.
do your thing. And he's, doing the whammy bar thing and all that dumb shit.
It's very of the times. This
Tell
is-
us how you really feel about the whammy bar, Russ.
of course, this is post Van Halen, where every guitar player
Well,
is
that's
following
yeah.
those footsteps now.
So we get 4 new songs here, and that's really about all I've got for background on this. What do y'all have? Anything?
Not much, other than that the recording process was very quick. They basically just went in, hammered it out, and that it's as I mentioned on the previous episode that Eric Carr seemed to be a little bit happier with these songs than they were with the Elder stuff
This is kind of
Really? He was happy with this?
because it was moving in a bit more of a hard rock direction, or like it sounded more traditional Kiss than the
If he
Elder
was
did.
happy with this, then I've lost a sizable amount of respect for the
Happy
guy.
may not be the right word to
Right.
use. I would say more satisfied.
there you go.
There's a lot going on here in the year 1982. And,
Oh, yeah.
This album is only just kind of a stopgap, if that. It's not even, I don't even know if it's fair to call it that. Most people aren't even going to be aware that this album has even come out, certainly in, as far as the American consciousness of what Kiss is.
Interesting cover too, because actually, for one,
It's the
of all the Kiss covers from like the 80s and stuff, I actually really like this one. The upside down triangle with the light bar behind it, and they actually use a photo of all 4 of the members. I just think from a design aspect, that's actually not a bad looking record cover. If the music had been better in it.
See, I think it looks kind of cobbled together and thrown together.
It looks like something I'd see at a bargain bin at a.
I mean, it
you
looks
would.
like what it is. It looks like it's a. But here you get 4 new songs. So let's go through these 4 new
Yeah.
all
songs.
Paul Stanley gems. There's
Yes,
not a-
no Gene
yeah,
songs.
you're right. You know what? I did not even consider that.
And I truly believe, because by this point, Gene even admits in his own book he was fully disconnected by now. He had gone, as the band, and he calls Hollywood. He was trying to do
Well,
movie.
we know he did a screen test somewhere in this era for the movie Flashdance. Is it for Flashdance? Or he was doing a screen test that exists,
And then he
which is
got-
interesting because no one knew what they looked. They still had not.
But he was going around doing this.
Yeah, but I think it's important to note that it's not that he's doing it; it's that nobody cares that there's a video of Gene Simmons with no makeup on.
Yeah, exactly.
And no one
right.
cares that you can now see. It's just like no one cares.
And in Gene's book, he also mentions around this time period, during that screen test, he was talking with one of the producers, and then they offered him his own TV show. And then he started talking to the management about it, and they said, well, you'd be getting this amount per episode. So you would essentially be paying for the right to be on TV. You'd be making less money now than you are in Kiss versus being part of the TV show. That's in his that makeup book that he put out
That
like
sounds
around
like Gene
Farewell
Simmons
Tour.
hyperbole to me, but who knows? Who knows? I mean, at this point in the game, I can't see that being true.
I mean, they were still getting those contracts from Polygram that were still, pretty lucrative at the time.
And that's going to get wonky here, and we'll explain why. But let's go ahead and run these 4 songs down real quick, and then we'll talk at length about this Polygram stuff.
I'm a Legend Tonight.
This sounds like Paul Stanley on a treadmill once again, with his
Paul
headband.
likes to work out.
Yes, it's kind of like Live to Win, where it should be like where it's a montage song.
All of these songs sound. That's exactly what I'm going to say about another one. But I'm a Legend Tonight. I've got this. Sounds like a less polished Unmasked track, like
It does. I can see this
like
on Unmasked.
Unmasked was, had that, we've talked about, had that high sheen kind of, gloss production. This doesn't have that, but it seems to be of that same kind of writing style.
With those
within
eighth note bass notes and...
But it's generic, and that's what I wrote, like a B-movie theme.
And this, of course, is co-written by Adam Mitchell, who did that Olivia Newton-John song, as per mentioned, too.
I can see this being like, the theme, the opening credits to a Skinamax movie.
So I the only thing I really pull from this song every time when I think about it is that opening guitar riff. And the thing is this kind of goes for all four of the songs. And I may be completely off the mark here, but this is at least my opinion. This sounds like Lick It Up before Lick It Up, that album, because it almost sounds like they're going in the Lick It Up direction. They pivot slightly for Creatures, but then they fall right back into this. It feels like these four songs would fit on Lick It Up. These do not feel like Makeup Kiss songs to me.
No, Creatures definitely has a heavier tone, but these
it's
definitely...
like even Creatures feels like a Makeup Kiss record. Even songs like, we're going to get to it, but even songs like Danger, that still feels like a Makeup Kiss song. No, all four of these songs do not feel like Makeup Kiss songs to me.
They feel, now that you say that, they feel very much like Paul Stanley solo songs.
Yeah, which is
very much. I had not even considered that until just this moment.
Which is interesting because he gets writers that worked with him on a solo album.
Yeah, Michael Japp. Down on Your Knees.
Yeah, speaking of, he has the co-write with him on this.
But this is also a first-time collaboration with a relatively unknown Canadian named
Bryan fucking Adams.
That's
Bryan Adams.
But that's just his Canadian middle name.
Down on Your Knees, probably the most forgettable.
Really? See, I thought this was maybe the best of the bunch, but it's still awful.
It's still pretty bad.
This is, I wrote in my notes, DUMB macho bullshit. Love in the First Degree is a lyric.
Yeah.
Did they really go there?
Oh,
yes, he did. He went there.
They continue
Love in the
to.
First, that is as generic and as stale as it gets. How many?
I think there's worse lyrics between the four.
The only thing that's more stale than Love in the First Degree is when you rhyme desire with fire. That went into the fucking cliche bin in 100 years ago.
What about Well with Well?
Yeah.
I can tell.
So I think that, but as far as a raunchy rock riff, this is the raunchiest of the four, and so for me it was the best. That doesn't mean I like it.
No.
And it's just
I would share those sentiments with Nowhere to Run. Out of the four, that's actually my favorite. In no way am I saying it's a good song like what you're saying with Down on Your Knees. But I think the reason I gravitated toward this one a little bit more is they still missed the mark greatly. But it sounds like they were trying to reach that classic 70s sound.
With Nowhere to Run, absolutely. Yeah, I agree with that too.
Really?
I do.
With the acoustic wrap-ins, the way the guitar riff actually plays. Now, take out the mixing and everything, like what you were saying, like with Unmasked. But I don't know. I just feel like that one to me kind of hinges more on a classic sound than the other four do. Again,
so we just segued right into Nowhere to Run here, right?
Might as well. I have nothing good to say.
We just segued into Nowhere to Run.
Because I have nothing good to say about Down on Your Knees either.
I already said it was forgettable to me.
What do you think about the Nowhere to Run?
I think Nowhere to Run, I'll agree with Alex in that it's the best out of the four. I like the way that it's ranged, and I think it could have stood up with anything off of Paul's solo material.
That's going a little too far on now.
Maybe sound wise, I don't know about maybe not the song itself. That they spent some time with it lyrically,
maybe a
and
little
stuff
bit
like
more
that.
time.
Yeah, but aesthetically and arrangement wise and things like that, I would stack it with say a Wouldn't You Like to Know Me or something like that.
No, you're that
sound wise,
I'll defend this song, but I will
sound wise, arrangement wise.
watching an episode where we're going to be like,
This is going to be the fun era.
this is going to be the era where you get fired off this fucking show for sacrilege.
Russ is like, I didn't even like the Paul Stanley solo record, but that much. But geez, don't compare this one to that.
But with the acoustics and all that too, that's kind of where that's where I'm getting at. Just
Russ,
sound
what do you
dynamics
think
and all
of Partners
that.
in Crime?
I think
Not Partners in Crime, but Nowhere to Run.
Nowhere to Run. Yeah.
I think what he said earlier, this is montage music. And this song in particular, this is the montage song from like a forgotten fucking Rocky movie when he's training, and he's there's like in his mind as he's jogging down the fucking beach or whatever, and he's seeing there's like all these flashbacks of fucking Clubber Lang and Apollo Creed and the fucking Russian guy. And
that chorus
look, man, awful.
That chorus will be in your head for
Awful.
days, though.
Awful. This is that's what this is. This is montage music. This isn't a cool Kiss song. This isn't even a cool song. This isn't even a good song. And this is where I get lost with like Kiss fans that go, Nowhere to Run's fucking cool. And I'm like, no, it's fucking not. How can you say that? How can you have any fucking credibility in your taste when you take a mediocre piece of dog shit like this that gets smeared across the wall and been like, it's art? No, it's fucking terrible, man.
Fine.
It's dog shit.
Fine.
This record, this whole fucking concept, everything about this is insulting to me. I had this debate today with a friend of mine that's a Kiss fan, and I'm like, and I said, I've got this in my notes. To me, these new songs are even more of a goddamned embarrassment than The Elder. And he's like, really? You really think these are worse than The Elder? Yes. And we're sitting here again. These are fucking Nowhere to Run the most of all. And I think the reason why I get so upset about this is because we have this treasure trove of great classic albums that Kiss have made that are so fucking good, and it's almost like they came up with that shit effortlessly, and they're just so much superior to this. And it's not because they're like great, grandiose whatever bullshit.
Yeah.
It's because they're lo-fi fucking raunchy dirty ass rock and roll songs, and they don't know how to do it anymore. They've lost it.
I think part of what's fueled you is we watched that Kobo footage of Let Me Go Rock and Roll right before this, where they were just like shit fire hot.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. It's like they're not even. It's like I'm not even comparing this to their contemporaries of the time in 1982 when this is recorded. I'm comparing this to themselves. This is a failure to be Kiss. This is what it is. It's cobbled together bullshit to just hastily throw on a fucking throwaway record that's going to be sold in the foreign markets.
Because they had to, not because they
had
necessarily
to, not because
wanted
they
to.
wanted to. But even if they wanted to, obviously they don't have it in the tank to even fucking do it.
Which is why they had to get outside songwriters.
Exactly.
They have a team of songwriters that
like,
come up with this.
And then the question is, would this have even been a good goddamn Bryan Adams song? No,
not at all.
It's not a good goddamn song. Anyway, Partners in Crime. Jesus fucking
This one's the worst.
Christ.
Everything you just said about Nowhere to Run, I say about Partners in Crime. I think this is the worst thing.
This is
I do too.
Think about this. They recorded this twice because they thought it would be better suited in a lower register.
Oh my god.
I don't know. Partners in Crime is still my absolute least favorite.
A second pass doesn't improve on this god-awful song. Paul plays bass on it, and honestly, all of these new songs are so unremarkable and so unmemorable that even after revisiting them last night to listen to them, I've already forgotten them again. Other than
not
Nowhere,
that one.
except for Nowhere to Run.
That chorus,
that chorus of Nowhere to Run, and I'm like,
there ain't
pissed
nowhere
off.
to run from that fucking chorus.
I know it. It's pissing me off. It's not stuck in your head in a good way. I mean, it sounds like, it's like, it could be like, the soundtrack to a fucking G.I. Joe cartoon. Seriously, that's the level it operates on. It's
That's
so
what Paul
bad.
Stanley does.
It's insulting as a Kiss fan that this is the best that they're going to come up with. It's like, this is like, might as well just like scream "fuck you" for 2.5 minutes and record that. Kiss fans, fuck you.
I think part of it too is because like listen to this album.
I can't wait for these future episodes.
Oh my God.
This is gonna be nutty.
I think part of the problem too is I was listening to this and The Elder in full, and I think I'll take Nowhere to Run over a lot of the Elder too, but that's just me.
When the song is ambivalent about itself, and it seems to be they have been ambivalent about writing it, that leaves the impression that the band themselves are ambivalent about themselves. And how do you get, Kiss seemed like they had that kind of that weird kind of aura about them in the 70s, that self-confidence that even if everyone else thought they were stupid, they themselves, they knew who they were and who their fans were. And like I said, I've said this in a previous episode, it felt very inclusive.
Oh, yeah.
It felt very, exclusive in the way that it was like us. And it's like, oh, you don't get it? Fuck you.
Yeah.
And now it's like they're just saying, fuck you.
You don't get it? Well, we don't either.
We don't either. We don't know what to do. And then why can they not expect their waning fan base to feel the exact same ambivalence? Who cares anymore? No one does. If you're gonna foister shit like this out, and you're gonna sit there and scratch your head going, gee, I don't understand why no one liked it. It blows my mind. And yes, this is worse than The Elder because it is so ambivalent. I mean, at least with The Elder, they had some sort of integrity working, that they were trying to do something.
They thought
they were doing something really good. They were putting their energy into it, and they believed in what they were doing.
This feels no energy.
There's no energy, and it doesn't feel like there's any belief in what they're doing.
Well, it's kind of hard too when you have Ace Frehley who's on his way out. You got Bill, your manager is being super irresponsible with what he's doing, and
Gene's basically in the process of checking out, if not checked out.
And then Paul's just kind of running the ship by himself, really, at this point.
And then you got Eric, the new guy that has no seniority, no right to say we should do this or anything else. He's just he's the glorified yes man because that's what he's been hired to be.
Yeah.
Oh, this is a band that's very lost, but again, the label's adamant about this.
They're still making money through that deal with Polygram, so they're just kind of playing to the beat of their drum at this point.
So some of these other tracks, I mean, when you include these 4 new songs, and then one of them flips from one of the new tracks and then goes into Cold Gin, I think
it's such an odd transition,
and it makes you realize. Again, it just punctuates how bad that new song is.
And it's and Partners in Crime goes straight into Detroit Rock City.
Yeah, and now there's some I guess some minor differences on these.
Yeah,
these aren't really remixed from the original tracks. You mentioned something about.
I Was Made for Loving You was the only one I kind of noticed.
You said
notable edits.
It does a jump cut in there.
Yeah, it's not too noticeable. The beginning of it is reduced down a little bit. They get straight into the riff a little faster than sitting on just the bass riff, and then coming out of
it's like
the oh whoa oh, and then the bam bam da 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 when it goes into the drum fill. It usually goes into a measure of he hits 4 toms. 1, 2, 3, 4. It cuts it down to a 1, 2.
Weird.
Yeah, so just
I don't know that I've ever noticed that. I did listen to see if Detroit Rock City had the double platinum remix where they sing the chorus over that part in the guitar solo, but it doesn't. It's basically the Destroyer mix.
Yeah. And then Shout It Out Loud, they actually don't let it go all the way to the end to the wow.
Oh yeah.
Bam.
Well,
they do a fade out.
Well, I think wasn't there a fade out on the.
On Destroyer, they go all the way out to the scream and the hard stop.
I'm forfeiting my nerd card.
Get on my level, Russ.
That's mixed different too, but that's nitpicky shit.
Yeah, there's little things here, but by and large, the thing that what is curious is they've included "Escape from the Island" on this.
The only track from the Elder,
an instrumental track from the Elder.
Yeah,
now
that wasn't a single.
Nope.
Why the fuck would they do that?
Now, I do have to make mention, the original 82 European edition has Legend of Night, Down on Your Knees, Cold Gin, Love Gun, Shout It Out Loud, Sure Know Something, then Nowhere to Run, Partners in Crime, Detroit Rock City, God of Thunder, Made for Loving You, Live Rock and Roll All Night. So the original 82 European edition did not have Escape from the Island. But then the 82 Australian version included Talk to Me.
Right.
which was interesting.
I want to know who compiled this.
And then the 82
who compiled it for, and what was the rationale that they looked at each foreign market and went, okay, they're going to get this, they're going to get this.
Because there is another variation. So the 82 European was the most stripped down. 82 Australian included Talk to Me. 82 Japanese included Escape from the Island and Shandy. So Japanese got the Shandy and Escape from the Island, which is essentially what
Why would we punish the Japanese with that? Why would they ever do to us? God damn it. So this album is called
odd.
Killers, and you know what?
There's an Iron Maiden album of the same name that's, Wait, hey, it's the one without Bruce Dickinson, so you might like it, Russ.
Oh, no, I like those. I do.
He had to snap out of it for a second.
I'm still just dumbfounded that this album even exists. It peaks as high as number 6 in Norway.
Yeah.
And number 14 in Australia. Mm-hmm. But it barely makes a dent in any other territory it's released. So it seems like this is just a pointless exercise. Now,
I also wonder if it was just to fulfill contract obligations.
That's what I'm thinking.
Well, no, the band. This wasn't. I don't think it was part of their. I mean,
it was a polygram request, but was it a
polygram
contractual?
Request. I think they were just trying
obligation?
I think they were just trying to recoup losses off of the Elder.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know. Meanwhile, in June, Ace formally quits the band.
The legend has it that Ace went all the way. I mean, Paul went all the way out to Ace's house, picked him up, took him to the mall.
I'm sure he did. I don't doubt that he did.
And basically just kind of was like, "Hey, man, don't leave. Like we're at a really crucial time. You know, don't do
what that
this."
crucial time is. This is they tell that story. They like to go, "We tried to keep him in the band. We love Ace. Oh yeah, he's our buddy." But no, that's not why they wanted Ace to stay in the band. The new deal with Polygram stipulated that Kiss was Gene, Paul, and Ace. And sort of like a reverse of that key man clause that they had when Neil Bogart left, Polygram has sort of a similar thing. If any one of those three guys leave, that opens up to them renegotiating that deal. Mm-hmm. Now they just, they negotiated this, astounding deal not 2 years prior, a year prior.
Yeah.
And failed to deliver. And if Ace leaves, now they're going to lose that sweet deal. Mm-hmm. So they don't want Ace to leave because they're going to lose big time with that.
Yep.
It's going to fuck them.
And even though this is not entirely related, it's just still a fun anecdote that I thought about. It's interesting that this is going to be the first, but not last time, Kiss has been part of a contract that says at least 3 original members need to be a part of the band.
Yeah.
Do what now?
Because the around the time of the Symphony and the Kiss Aerosmith tour, that was one of the clauses. Peter did not want to be part of it, and they were ready to put Eric back on drums and keep Tommy on guitar. Well, part of the stipulations for that tour is they had to have 3 original members. So again, that same kind of contract comes back to bite them in the ass later.
But see, that's the problem, or maybe the benefit of having such an identifiable, cohesive, kind of unique thing that it's not even to this day. This is the thing that the uber Kiss nerds will understand. It's not the Demon, the Star Child, the Spaceman, the Catman. It's Gene, Paul, Ace, and Peter.
Yes.
And that's essential. And whether or not those guys like each other and everything, it's like almost irrelevant to the point. I mean, if they don't like each other that much, fucking stop, man.
Yeah.
Just fucking stop.
And in all reality, this would be
Quit
the time to stop.
undermine and undercut each other, which they do constantly. And the problem is they, again, up to this point, Kiss is still... No one knows about this stuff. They're very, they play everything very close to their vest, and they will continue to do so for the next 10 years, even after the mystique is long gone. And really, they still do to a certain degree. And it's like, dude, you don't get to write fucking tell-all books and then try to act like you've still got some mystique.
That's not how this works.
This isn't how it works. But back then, the mystique still exists to a certain degree. And no one knows that Ace is leaving the band because they're doing everything in their power to make people believe that he's still in the band, and this will continue for another close to full year. Well, through the end of this year.
Yeah.
Through the Creature cycle, in fact.
Because Killers basically comes out really fast before Creatures, which is why I feel like in this episode we'll probably wind up going over the Ace Frehley replacement period. That way, by the time we get to Creatures, we can kind of discuss what they've decided to do with all these guitarists, and then the tour after the fact.
Yeah,
but this all it's almost like the 70s all over again. Shit's starting to happen really fast again.
Because Ace doesn't want to be in the band anymore, and he works out a deal with Bill to where he doesn't have to appear at any live shows, but make public appearances.
Well, or is
that gets a little that's a little into Creatures.
Okay.
That's we're a little ahead of ourselves here. Let's stop for a minute and kind of take a microphone.
Microscopic
I'm
look.
going to turn the microphone over.
A microscope on the polygram thing, which I'm probably going to get a lot of this wrong because I'm not a smart man. But from the stuff I'm gathering, a little bit of background. Polygram is really part of something called phonogram. I'm going to just keep calling it polygram.
I know
think
that
the two
confused me.
are a little bit interchangeable,
Yeah.
but essentially I think what phonogram did was it started buying out labels at some point in the early 70s. They were buying these labels that had kind of, I guess, stopped having commercial value. So they're buying, bargain basement prices. They're buying up old labels like Mercury and Decca and Verve and kind of, shaking them out and, rebranding them in a sense.
And buying all those catalogs.
And getting the
I'd imagine,
catalogs and part of this, as they're buying stuff, they acquire Casablanca. You can't understate the fact that Casablanca was an indie label. They obviously, we've talked about how they were a startup subsidized by Warner Brothers, and the plan being they would eventually be enveloped under the Warner umbrella. So in a sense, they were built to fail. And fail meaning they were built to go, get it started, get it going, and then to a certain point, then we'll just buy you back out, and it becomes a subsidiary. Mm-hmm. Well, that obviously fell apart straight away. We've talked about that in early episodes.
Yeah.
And at some point, Casablanca tried to renegotiate or to negotiate a similar deal with ABC Records, and that didn't happen. So they come to a deal finally with Polygram, and Polygram took a 50% stake in Casablanca in 1977. Like I said, they also acquired MGM, RSO. The RSO deal was probably considered pretty good at the time because RSO had the Bee Gees, who were like the kings of the disco thing.
Right.
And they saw their market share rise from 5% to 20%, a huge jump. And for a while, they are the largest record company in the entire world. But they start experiencing the blowbacks from disco. First, the failure of RSO. Then especially the Sgt. Pepper movie soundtrack. Yeah. That was a big loss, and then you couple that with Casablanca's failure, with the disco thing that caused a big backlash. Polygram forces a buyout of Casablanca, and the only acts of any value at that point is Donna Summer and Kiss. Donna Summer's like, peace out, I'm out, see ya, and she takes off.
Didn't she do like just one more single and then that was it, or something like that?
Something. But of course, Kiss has the deal with Casablanca, or they renegotiate the deal with Casablanca, and that is done by Howard Marks. And I think we've talked about that before. The deal was for, I've got in my notes, $15 million with a $2 million advance on each new album and a royalty rate of $1.20 per unit, which was high for the time. And of course, the deal defines Kiss as Ace, Gene, and Paul because Peter had left the group. Mm-hmm. Now, part of his deal with him leaving was they allowed him to retain a share in the band's income, which I guess, for lack of a better definition, would be almost like a severance package.
Yeah,
right. But he gets, he retains, for everything they're doing thereafter, he gets money off of it.
Basically, in like modern talk, he almost just has stock in the company.
Yeah, but I don't know to what degree. I thought I initially had read that as he'd retained a full, quarter share, or not quarter, but whatever it was, 20% share, because I guess, I don't know. But it was still a sweet deal, for lack of a better term, a golden parachute for him.
Yeah.
And it was basically, here, just will you please go away? Which is terrible, but it's the truth of it. I'm kind of skipping over stuff here. I'm trying not to get myself lost. Let's see. So, they're able to renegotiate the deal with Polygram because Neil Bogart left Casablanca. That was their key man clause.
Right.
Their existing contract then became void, and that's what allowed them to renegotiate. But this is important because now that they've renegotiated this sweet deal, but they've got to maintain 3 original members. This is going to be this is going to be a problem now.
Because almost like a cat to a can opener as soon as that happens.
And that's why all of everything they're going to do now is going to be like trying to keep this shit secret.
Yeah. Because it's like they can't find out. We'll lose our money.
Yeah.
So that's why, Ace is going to be on the cover of both the Killers comp and Creatures of the Night. And, they don't have any good fortune with the Elder, so they have no leg to stand on whatsoever. Polygram's taking a loss that is reported to be an estimated $220 million between, I think, 1979 and 1984, according to what I've got.
That just makes me lightheaded.
And a lot of that had to do with the returned records. We talked about them shipping platinum and getting returned gold. I mean, they were awash in returns, and not just Kiss returns. There was, disco too. But the remedy for that, which was standard practice, was selling these records at a cost reduction to discount retailers.
Yep.
The cutouts. That's why you find so many Kiss albums that have the little dog ear cutout on the corner. That was just a standard practice.
But hey, it's at least a way to guarantee that you've got an original copy.
Right.
And an estimated 1.4 million Kiss records are sold at discount. However, Kiss had a contractual provision in this contract that they got, and that said they only allowed that practice for the discounting with their written express consent, which Polygram did not do.
Oh,
because fuck these guys.
Yeah,
we're getting fucked here.
Yeah,
fuck them right back in their butthole.
Again, no leg to stand on.
I mean, I'm sure that was the attitude. The problem is it was illegal. And since they had Kiss had not given consent for this, Polygram essentially would owe the group for the loss. Well, they don't want to pay them, so they try to go for settlements. No. Fuck you. I'm sure. But spoken in...
Yeah, no, fuck you, buddy. No, fuck you, buddy.
Yeah, but spoken in corporatese with very polite terms.
So I don't remember this
you
being...
may politely suck my balls.
So Kiss sue Polygram. And they sue them. So, here we are, fresh into their sweet record deal. They're losing a member, and they're going, don't tell nobody. And then on top of that, they're going to sue the record company. They're going to sue their own record company. No one ever wins these things. No one. This is like a time-honored thing. It's like, I can't think of anyone that sued their record company and won other than maybe Tom Schultz from Boston in 1986 or whatever it was. It's like no one ever wins these things. But Kiss have a compelling case because it's in their contract. They are in the right. They have they can't lose.
So Polygram lied to them.
And they'd sue for $6.7 million plus punitive damages. Now, this is a good thing for them because it will serve as a life raft for the band after this string of failures coming off of, the Dynasty tour, cost overrun, the Unmasked tour cost overrun and the failure of Unmasked on the U.S. market and the
failure
the
of
complete bomb of the Elder. They need this money because their money, their income is substantially dried up.
And even with the Elder, they had a triple whammy because it was a flopped album. They didn't tour. And there was no merchandise.
And it was their most expensive album to make.
So that was
it's
quadruple.
They need this. And so the risk is losing their lucrative deal with their label. And so it's a huge gamble. The trial happens at the end of 1982, in December of 82, and the band does win.
Yeah.
Justice prevails.
Justice prevails. They have I believe they have a jury trial, which is unusual. I don't understand that. I'm not a legal expert, so it just seems like this would have been something that would have been, done with a
record business
with a judge. Yeah, but they get awarded. They've sued for $6.7 million plus punitive damages.
Mm-hmm.
The jury determines what they feel is fair based on what they think would be the accumulative royalty rate of the discounted records. And Kiss wins $520,000.
Ouch.
Yikes.
And what makes this even more bitter is that they rejected a last-minute settlement for $1 million from Polygram.
God damn it.
Take the $1 million and we'll just call it even. Oh. No. And now they just saved Polygram virtually $500,000.
And you know what's funny is anytime you hear about the story, it's quickly glossed over. They don't ever talk about the lies.
Why would they talk about it?
Exactly. Like even in that most recent History documentary thing that A&E did, they even mentioned, they're like, and we sued our record company and we won. And it's just like they frame it like that.
And we won. Next.
Yeah.
Wait, how much did you win? We won.
Don't worry about it.
I'm Gene Simmons of Kiss.
I'm sure those lawyers they hired weren't cheap either.
No, after fees and expenses, including a percentage to Bill Aucoin, who was their manager. And he did get a percentage of this deal. Nobody made anything.
No.
So who really won here?
McDonald's for everybody.
And moreover, with Ace leaving, this develops a breach of contract. So,
and isn't this around the same time period too that they decide to let go of Bill Aucoin, like right before Creatures?
Yeah, all of this is happening simultaneously, and now Kiss are very much on the hook.
Yeah,
and they're too broke to break up, and they're too broke. Here's what I wrote: they're too broke to break up, and too broke up to break as they once were.
Damn, poetic, Russ.
I like it.
I like it, though. It's great.
But and I think, and this is my own personal opinion, this is where all the gears grind to a halt, and they realize this is over. It's time to break up and cut our losses and go. But we can't because the losses are too great, and we need to keep going now because we're desperate.
Now, would this also maybe be the same
have.
kind of mindset as to when Paul was saying it would have been more expensive to not tour? Remember back in the Dynasty thing?
Here it's more expensive to not break up.
Yeah.
Or it's less it's less expensive to not break up.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's like here they have to soldier on as a shadow of their own former glory. These guys were once kings, and now they're limping into the 80s under the heel of new masters.
Mm-hmm.
And everything they will do now for the next 10 years, literally, are going to be just efforts to keep surviving. And people go, they sold 1 million copies of this, that, and the other record. And I'm like, it's in an era when most bands were selling just on average 3 and 4 million copies. And that was,
the music industry was booming in the 80s.
Struggling to sell 1 million copies. And that just keeps them going from one record to the next. It's like, This is a matter
Catching
of
just enough scraps, just enough of those drops of water to keep
so
going.
I think they would have probably been better off to just have stopped here, but they can't. They really, literally cannot stop, and especially now.
Well, if they had stopped, we wouldn't have gotten "Keep Me Coming."
Yeah. Well, with Ace leaving, that produces a new quandary as to what they need to do to replace Ace.
All the while also not having a manager, because even just a quick footnote on that one, that was more, there's not like, I've even heard out of like Bob's mouth, like, they're like split. He even like kind of says it very melodramatically, like it wasn't like that big of a thing. Even Paul's recount is like they call up Bill and they're like, hey, we need to have a meeting, and he's like, yeah, I figured. And that they just kind of
when
all
does that
meet up.
happen? Do y'all have that? Because I meant to get that written down, and I
don't have the exact
because
date.
I thought that was still 82 too, right?
It happened basically on the heels of the Elder. Like I honestly, I think it happened right before they started doing the Killers thing.
Because we talked about how Ace was fucked up throughout this whole thing. Bill was even more fucked up.
Well,
or just as.
I mean, that's that's a measure of how much hearsay and what I'm sure that's true, but I'm not gonna. I mean, it seems like to me he was still a creative. I mean, to me, that's something else we could talk about probably at length at another time. But I'm just Bill Aucoin style of managing versus Doc McGee style of managing.
I think we can cross that in the
Doc McGee
90s.
is not a creative manager. In my mind, I don't see any of the creativity that Bill Aucoin brought to the table. I think they lost way. You cannot measure the loss they had with losing Bill Aucoin, letting Bill Aucoin go. But they blamed him for a lot of stuff that really wasn't his fault. They had business managers. He was not their business manager. They brought in Glickman Marks to cover that. They had C.K. Lent as their touring accountant. They had guys that were doing. They had bean counters, right?
Yeah.
And the bean counters would be going, "You're losing money," and they're going, "We don't care.
Yeah.
We must
exactly.
be Kiss."
You're right.
And then when Kiss couldn't be Kiss anymore, it was like,
this is your fault.
Bill, this is your fault. What? How the fuck is it my fault?
Sure, I've been taking a big cut of your money this entire time, and it's been going straight up my nose. But whatever.
But that doesn't matter. It's still. I mean, there's so much that he could bring to the table. But at any rate, we got bigger fish to fry here in a way that we got this Ace problem.
Yeah,
Ace is gone. Come on, Ace, don't leave, man.
I took it to the mall, man.
We'll go to the mall, man. We'll go to the food court.
You want an Orange Julius?
Yeah. Come on, dude. Can you put some vodka in it?
No. See, that's the problem we're having here, bud.
We think it's clouding your judgment because you want to quit. So they got
not because of everything else that's going on. It's just don't quit.
So they've got to try out people, and Bob Kulick is not in the running. There's some names that have been floated that aren't.
Now, do we know the official reason why Bob was never asked?
I think because he had no hair.
I kept hearing that too, but
I'm assuming. Well, they had a very clear idea of what they wanted.
Yeah,
they wanted someone that was going to be roughly the same height as them. They wanted someone that was 6 foot tall. They wanted someone that was at least 20 years old. These are like two important things.
Yeah,
and I think they wanted someone that was going to be a modern guitar player. I'm sure.
I mean, it feels like Bob would fit that.
Well, except for the hair part.
Well, yeah, I'm talking about like the modern guitar style.
Oh, I don't know. So I've got a list of like guys.
A list? Yes, a list.
And I've got it alphabetized. It was all alphabetized and everything.
Alphabetized by last name or first name?
By their last name.
Because we're formal like that.
Names that people that
tried out for the coveted position.
And I'm not sure of the timeline on this, because the way I understand it, they had essentially an East Coast and West Coast thing going on. They had guys came into SIR Studios in New York City to try out, and then when they were on the West Coast, they had guys that flew in and I think came to the studio and recorded.
Yep. And that's why I say a little bit of this overlaps, but it's also important to point out through all of this, they never find a guitarist.
And they're also recording Creatures of the Night as this goes on.
At the same time, yeah.
Which we'll go into in the next episode. But for now, let's
so you'll
just
hear
talk
some.
about...
So when they listen to the next episode, they'll hear familiar names pop up.
Yeah, because this, truly, No Time to Turn. Some of the names that have popped up in my research. Doug Aldrich, later of Dio and Whitesnake.
Yeah.
He was only 17 and was perhaps considered too young, maybe.
Great player, though.
Michael Angelo Badio.
Oh, that's the guy that
from
does
Nitro.
Yeah, that's the guy that plays that can shred with both hands. If you watch videos of him, he has a double neck guitar that's shaped like a V.
I don't get it.
I was gonna say, guess how many girlfriends he had in high school?
Right.
To have that amount of time on his hands.
So he was recommended by Mike Varney of Shrapnel Records.
Okay.
I'm curious about this because it seems like Varney recommended a couple of people.
Shrapnel Records was like the Shredder record label they put out.
They were doing the early kind of what I guess would be the
guitar
American,
instrumental.
Well, they were doing. Didn't they do? Man, I'm thinking of Metal Blade. I don't fucking
Shrapnel
know.
put out like Joe Satriani and Steve Vai and folks like that.
Well, so that makes sense because then they have the finger on the pulse of the hotshot guitar players.
And they were founded in 1980.
So this guy, Michelangelo Badio. Yeah. I don't even know if I'm saying that right.
I think that's right.
Anyway, he was just called Michelangelo, I think, for a minute, right? When he just
because
tried to sell himself.
Super
because that's
80s
like fucking
thing.
guitar virtuoso bullshit. So his story is he flew in and recalls playing Calling Dr. Love and taking over vocals.
That was mistake number one.
And getting the words wrong and making everyone laugh.
Imagine.
But I mean, I think it was. He tells it like it was all in good spirits.
Yeah, but imagine though, you're Gene, and some hotshot guitar player comes and starts singing your song, and then messes up the lyrics
on purpose.
And he feels like he was because he was only 18. And he felt like it wasn't his age though, as much as he came across too much like a Starstruck fan. He guiltily and readily accepts it. He's like, dude, I was totally like, fuck yeah, But I suspect it was largely the age.
Yeah, because they're all in their mid-20s by this point.
There was a band called TKO that was, I guess, popular in Northeast area. I can remember seeing their logo. I don't think I've ever heard them.
I haven't either.
And they might have been on Metal Blade. I don't know. Maybe they were on Shrapnel. Who knows? But they had a guitar player named Adam Brenner, and he would change his name to Adam Bomb because that's so goddamn rock and roll.
Adam Dive Bomb.
And he was the guy that says that he was told that they wanted someone at least 20 and at least 6 feet tall, and he was neither. He was 17. And what's interesting is here, a lot of these guys are teenagers. I don't know where they're digging up these kids from and why they're trying them out. But Robin Crosby allegedly
from Rats
tried out. It's not verified, but it's not implausible. Steve Ferris famously auditioned in the studio as they were recording and was asked to lay down a lead on a track, and he did 2 passes. The second one, he did this little trick with a whammy bar and a volume pedal, and he did that second take is what they kept as the lead guitar track on the title track of Creatures of the Night.
Yep.
But he didn't get the job. And he feels he didn't get the job because he couldn't sing.
Interesting.
That was also part of the deal. They wanted someone that could sing because they always did the harmony thing.
Yeah,
that's part of the Kiss thing.
So I was gonna say, sure as shit went because they wanted him to like sing songs because Bruce didn't get a song until the damn Carnivals of Souls.
Allegedly, Roger Fisher of Heart was asked and turned down the offer, or asked to audition and turned it down.
Yeah.
So, so there were people that might have been asked to be like, hey, you want to try out for Kiss? Fuck no.
I was going to say, they got all these young guns wanting to because folks their age are like...
They're young and hungry, and they're like, fuck yeah, but a guy like him who's been in Heart, he's like
fuck no.
Of course, whatever happened to him after that?
I don't care to Google, and I doubt either of our listeners would.
Robin Ford, who played on Creatures of the Night, I think he was the guy that plays on I Still Love You. Mm-hmm. But he didn't audition, nor was he interested. He just came in and did the session work.
Okay.
a guy named Steve Irons of a band called Cities, and he was recommended by Jack Starr of Virgin Steel, who the band went to see.
Hold up. So many 80s names
I know.
there.
They went to go see Jack Starr. I think they were curious about trying him out, but he never auditioned, and he recommended this kid. And again, another 17-year-old, and why they're pulling these teenagers, I don't fucking know. But he had the qualities they wanted. They said he apparently was tall, easygoing, and evidently, if the story is to believe, he was offered the gig. But it went through his manager because he was under management with his band Cities, and his manager turned it down. Or he tried to actually have Kiss buy him out, buy his management contract out. He tried to make money off the deal, and they backed off from that real hard and were like, no, thanks, but no thanks.
Damn.
And he didn't find out about it until after the fact, and they didn't find out about it until after the fact.
Oh, that poor bastard.
Well, they tried to help him out, apparently, but in the aftermath, it just didn't pan out. So, I don't know. I guess Gene tried to be, I'm Gene Simmons.
From Kiss.
From Kiss.
Do you want $1?
A guy that had been working with John Beauvoir from, I think I'm saying that, from the Plasmatics.
You are,
he was the
you're
bass
right.
player from the Plasmatics. He was playing with a guy named Tommy Lafferty. And he said he received a series of cryptic phone calls and eventually figured out, oh, this is for Kiss. It especially helped when someone called and went, Tom, this is Gene Simmons
Of Kiss.
of Kiss. Am I going to try out for Kiss? I cannot confirm or deny that at this point.
How would you like to buy?
He tells a story about auditioning with them and felt it went really well. And that same night, Van Halen was playing at Madison Square Garden, and they invited him to come and hang. And so, it kind of looked promising, I guess, for a minute. And then for whatever reason, they decided no. Part of this cattle call, Bob Kulick's little brother, Bruce Kulick.
That's right.
Auditions, which is interesting because he doesn't get it.
And I've heard one reason why. And Bruce even kind of like offhand mentioned it. I can't tell if he was mainly joking about it or like he was being serious. They wanted him to shave it. He had like this big ass mustache. They wanted him to shave the mustache, and he said no.
Well, yeah, they would have had him shave the mustache, but I would suspect that it probably went into a thing that they were looking for someone that could do vocals.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know though.
But no, he always joked. He's like, I had a big old mustache, and they want me to shave it. And I just didn't want to do it.
I think they were seriously looking at Punky Meadows of Angel,
Former label mate.
and that was under the advice of Barry Levine, the photographer. He went to audition, played side one of Alive, and then they jammed on Communication Breakdown, and were like, well, let's talk some business. And they started talking business, and he offhandedly mentions that he's still working with Greg Giuffria, who was the keyboard player in Angel, and they were shopping a deal, which I think he felt was being conversational, but the band took it as a refusal and got up and walked out. And they were like, and then I guess somebody came back and said, what the fuck did you do to blow that? And he's just like, nothing. I don't, he didn't realize he just misspoke.
Well, it's because they're also wanting to find, I do know one other little wrinkle that they had. You may have mentioned it once, which is they wanted to find someone unknown.
Well, yeah,
so if they were shopping around,
possibly, but at this point, I don't know. I don't know. Again, these stories could be all apocryphal.
Oh, absolutely.
I don't know.
It's like going through the many vocalists that when auditioned for the Misfits in the 90s.
Yeah,
it's like, everyone and your brother supposedly has a demo tape of them jamming with Jerry and Doyle.
But I know someone that legit does.
I know. That's part of the reason I said it.
Michael Ray, who would end up in the Wendy O. Williams band. Al Romano, who was a kid, a hotshot guitar player in the New York City area. I think he felt like he came across as a little too cocky. He comes in and asks, he's 17, and he goes, hey, I want to see those photo albums with the groupies. And Gene's like, we can talk photo albums another time.
Yeah.
But he claims his audition was videotaped. Which is curious.
Wonder how many others could have possibly been.
A guy named Roger Romeo from a band called Legs Diamond, and I used to see their name all the fucking time.
Legs Diamond.
I know my brother saw them down in Biloxi, Mississippi in 1985 or 4.
All right.
Allegedly, Kiss had considered covering a Legs Diamond song. I think Legs Diamond goes back to
That's just such a weird
the mid-
name.
early 70s. It's very much a American glitter glam, early glam, But apparently, he didn't realize he was in an audition. He didn't know their material and just jammed, and he feels like that probably derailed his chances because he wasn't familiar with their thing. But then again, who knows?
Yeah.
Richie Sambora claims to have auditioned. In his story, he was given the job only to turn it down because he didn't feel they were bluesy enough.
Yeah, Paul Stanley talks about that in his book.
Yeah, he's got a great quote in his book about Richie didn't fly out to California just because he liked airline food. And he goes, and my Bon Jovi records aren't necessarily filed next to my Howling Wolf records.
So petty. I love it.
Yeah, but you know what? In this time, it's justified. Because what the fuck, dude? They were bluesy enough. You playing goddamn Bon Jovi. Or Wanted Dead or Alive is a fucking blues classic. Kiss my ass. You fucking New Jersey fucking redneck wannabe. Fuck you. Fuck that band. Fuck that guy. Fuck his fucking shitty fucking guitar playing.
Not even in fucking Bon Jovi anymore.
Fuck that too. Fucking Richie Sambora. Oh, let's just bow down and kiss your fucking New Jersey ass. Your bluesy New Jersey ass. Dumb motherfucker.
I love it.
The statements are of Russell Ward.
Yeah.
Do not necessarily represent the views and
Whatever. No, I'll back it. Fuck it. Fuck it. Everything said on this show is backed by the Something Good Network. God damn it.
A guy whose name I'm going to butcher here, his name was Spencer Surcombe or Surcombe.
That you're doing as best as I could. I actually have not heard this name.
He was working for BC Rich. I think he was the go-between when Paul started using BC Rich guitars. And so I guess they found out, that way, whatever. Because this was the time when he had that leopard print BC Rich guitar.
I remember that now.
So he had a good rapport with Paul, but for some reason he didn't feel like Gene liked him. And he thinks that's probably what derailed him.
And you always hear those sort of stories where it's like Gene really liked me, but Paul didn't, and then others like Paul liked me, but Gene just
that makes sense.
Side-eyed me.
You never know. Then you've got, of course, the legendary Eddie Van Halen story, which I don't believe at all.
You don't?
Even though both Paul and Gene claimed that they had talked with Eddie Van Halen.
Paul says he doesn't know anything about Eddie Van Halen saying he was interested in playing with them.
Paul, in his book, if I'm recalling correctly, was talking with Eddie Van Halen about him venting about,
he might have been venting about
his Van Halen situation.
Yeah.
But I mean, and some of that rings true because I think it's pretty well established that Eddie Van Halen was never a very happy guy.
Yeah,
and for whatever reason, he was a tormented soul. I don't know. Noel Monk wrote his book, when he kind of outlines it, not in a pandering way or a mean-spirited way. I mean, it seems like to me Eddie Van Halen probably had some depression issues of some sort or whatever, and we know he was a notorious alcoholic, and people with
sometimes
emotional
that goes
issues
hand in hand.
goes hand in hand, and as does the creativity that goes with it.
Yeah,
but I still think this is largely Gene Simmons' hyperbole, or Gene just misunderstood what
he read the room wrong.
He was probably just offhand, even if he mentioned it, going, "Hey, I'll just play with you guys." It could have been just a shooting from the hip,
bullshitting with the guys kind of thing. Hey, screw it, I'll just play and you go. I'll play and Kiss.
Yeah, but like if they were going to go, okay, and he'd be like, what?
Yeah,
I was just kidding, guys.
Yeah.
I didn't mean it. I wasn't serious when I said that.
Yeah, it's like hanging out at a band practice and just being like, fuck it, I'll play bass. And they're like, all right, cool. Well, band practices are on this day and this. Like, wait, hold up.
I'd argue at that point, Eddie Van Halen was probably more famous than Paul and Gene at that point.
And then there was a guy named John Werner, and this is an interesting story because apparently he was a very serious contender. He played in a band with a guy that had been Ace's guitar tech, I guess. And so he's not certain, but he thinks that this is what's interesting. He thinks that Ace himself recommended this guy. Like, you should check out this guy. And they flew him from New York to California.
Yeah.
And he had an audition, and they liked him. And they liked him so much, they said, we want you to stay here for another 3 weeks. And I guess they might have still been in the process of auditioning other guys, but I think, but as soon as those 3 weeks were up, that very last day, you can go home now.
Wow.
Damn.
So that's interesting.
I know again, we'll probably never have answers to it, but it's like, what changed the thought process on it so hard?
Well, none of this makes a whole lot of sense, because it seems like to me that, you had a pretty good pool of talent here to draw from. Mm-hmm. And, it's like, again, and it kind of jives with what Bob Kulick said about them not knowing what they wanted, but knowing what they didn't want.
And sometimes that's easier than knowing what you want is knowing what you don't want.
And they were asking a lot of these guys about, are you willing to dye your hair black and all that stuff? And, some guys were and some guys weren't. So I'm sure that discounted guys, and just general attitude. I mean, a lot of these kids have a lot of them that, from what I understand, all claim that, we probably felt we were a little too cocky, So, they were looking for someone that was laid back, but really what I think they were looking for was someone that was tractable, somebody that was going to be like, yes, sir.
Right.
Do this. Okay.
Yes, man.
Do this. Okay. And meanwhile, they have been working with Vincent Cusano.
Yep, the last on the list.
Well,
Nice
he doesn't ever really audition. He's there helping write. Mm-hmm. And I guess he's helping some in the studio, which we'll talk about on the next episode. Mm-hmm. But, in the meantime, these are some gigantic, enormous changes they're going through. They're losing their manager, or they're firing their manager. They're losing their guitar player, which puts them on the brink of losing their recording contract, quite literally. Or at the very least, they're going to have to renegotiate it at a much lower rate. But they'll be lucky, they'll be lucky to keep it, is probably their attitude, because why would Polygram want to keep them at this point? They're kind of in a desperation mode here. So, it's just, this is like.
And you know what? I think it oddly shows through in the songwriting in the next record.
Yeah, I think so. But it's interesting to consider that all of this has happened in a 3-year period between 1979, where they're at the height of their powers, and now no one cares if they were to fucking take their makeup off.
Dun, dun, dun.
And they just got the makeup trademarked.
And actually, they started getting a lot of questions around this time period. Would you ever consider doing shows without makeup?
Well, they always gotten that question,
but a lot more now.
But that's such an important calling card that they've got, and I know that they're going to consider dropping it during this process as well. We'll talk about that in the next episode.
Yeah.
But they're not KISS anymore.
It's the lowercase ISS.
They have really, it's just, now they're going to struggle, and they're going to scratch and claw for everything that they've got. And they're kind of back to where they were 10 years prior, only now they're jaded. They've been, fat and content. That fire and that hunger that they had before they were successful is not the same fire and hunger they're going to have to try to reclaim their past glory.
Yep.
And
absolutely.
So everything they do now is informed by a cynicism. And it's not that kind of cynicism is not a good thing. The cynicism that they were always accused of in the past really didn't exist, because they were committed to to presenting something that, you know, they were committed to a quality to what they were doing.
Yeah.
The cynicism now is going to start bubbling forth because, you know, as I said in the previous episode, in all manners of all incarnations of their previous past or whatever, from album to album, as their costumes changed and the presentation changed and the staging changed, it was what they wanted to do, and the fans followed them.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now they're looking and second guessing themselves every step of the way. They want to get the hot shot guitar player. If we're going to have to replace Ace, let's get the fucking guy. You know, let's get the guy that can noodle and blah 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 blah. You know, they're gonna keep second guessing themselves to the point that, you know, it renders their whole integrity obsolete. Whatever integrity they had.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there was an integrity to what they did. If you look at it as crass commercialism, that's fine, but they really, you know, they believed in what they did.
Mm-hmm. They believed their own hype.
Now they've seen that so much failure in the last 3 years, they don't believe in themselves anymore, and they're going to second guess themselves, and it's going to roll into, I guess, a relatively dark album.
Yeah.
So
some darker undertones and themes that they really hadn't explored yet.
A lot heavier.
But is it Kiss music? And we'll go into that into greater detail in the next episode of No Time to Turn, and hopefully you guys will join us for that. And until then, I'm Russ, and for Cap and for Alex, we'll see you next time on No Time to Turn.
Thank you for listening. Please insert another coin by supporting the show for as little as $1 a month at patreon.com/somethinggoodnetwork.